Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We're getting a little market update from Mike Wilson, who's the publisher of Fraser Valley Lifestyle, but he's also spends more of his time as a realtor in the Fraser Valley. It's crystal ball time. We do this a few
Yeah,
times a year. We get
yeah,
together online and try and ask you to look into your crystal ball and look
sure.
ahead. If I could just sum up my observation from the year, it sounds like from January almost until May or June, it was a pretty hot market and there was multiple offers and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then it just died going into the summer, like just in terms of activity, and you weren't getting those multiple offer situations. So just looking back, is that a fair summation of the year so far?
I think it really is. I mean, if you look at, and I have some statistical stuff. I'm just gonna give some basic statistical. So January of 2018 through to July of 2021, we've had a 23% rise in actual listings. So there's a big listing boost. What did that mean? Well, we started out that super hyper market when we got into COVID after about 6 months. We didn't have the supply. And so what happened is you had a huge disparity. You had far more pent up energy. That's where the multiple offers came in. Had a little less supply, a lot more activity that we didn't anticipate. And before you knew it, we were at a depleted resource or depleted listings. What's happening now, which happened through till to this point right now, we hit sort of the summertime. So BC historically, if you're going to have a softer market, it's going to be sort of the end of June through the end of August, and that's I would draw a parallel. It doesn't work that way through Canada, but with BC in particular, most people, school's out. We have beautiful weather, beautiful scenery, lots of things to do in BC. People do tend to take that time. So we do see a trend of that if you're going to see it. And we did see that this year, probably for some different reasons to add to the normal reasons. Obviously, COVID has presented challenges as far as travel goes. We saw people still buying recreation vehicles and traveling within BC. So there still was some travel, which kept them going. The other thing that happened is we just simply had a marketplace where the prices were simply skyrocketing. People were in multiple offers, they weren't getting their property. But now we've seen in the July markets where the balance of listings to sale ratio is balanced out much more. And what that did was it allowed people to take a look at properties a couple of times. Still seeing great sales, but you had an opportunity to write on a property that you may have seen two or three times, where previously during COVID, with the spike in the market, you had to write an offer immediately, and you were in a multiple scenario. Now, are there still some multiple offers? Yes, there are, because we're not getting a huge supply in all sectors. And so there are still the occasional multiple offers coming in on property. But for the most part, it's settled in, and certain components of the market, there's more supply. So there's less of that happening. And that's the summer market. So a little bit more traditional. We had a little softening, although the market's been strong enough. It certainly wasn't comparable to the hyperinflated market that we had in the previous year. And I think that's much healthier. Obviously, as a buyer, it's a much healthier market. As a seller, everybody wants to win the lottery. The reality, though, is that when you're selling and buying, there's a relativity that comes into play. So unless you are actually selling out of the market and not reinvesting, this is a better market for you. In that previous market, yes, you would sell for a windfall, but you'd be back in the same position as the buyer was selling when they were buying your home. You'd be in a multiple scenario. So much more level market in the summertime, I think, for most places, and a bit of negotiating. And we'll see where the fall goes for supply. That'll be the interesting thing.
Yeah. So looking ahead,
Yeah.
I know it's impossible to know, especially with what's going on in the world. And we have an election happening and all
Yeah.
kinds of stuff. What are you seeing for the fall?
Well, how do I come up with how do I come up with my crystal ball? There's a few factors that I sort of throw into that. Some of them are intangibles, so they're not really trackable. Other things that we can do is we can look at CMHC reports to see where they're trending as far as, more trackable things. So some of the things that CMHC is watching is we're starting to see a little bit of a tickling up of the fixed mortgage rates. So fixed mortgage rates have a direct bearing as far as affordability. And a lot of buyers that are gotten into the market now they've never had to say the word 4%, the interest rate wise. So you start to see interest rates climbing, which they could at some point, and that will have a direct bearing on the buying ability or the budget that's available. The other thing that's happened is with CMHC, with the affordability aspect, is they've increased the stress test for buyers. So that continues to be a bit of a challenge. So you're sitting at over 5% stress test. So not everybody's going to qualify for those funds. Now, when we talk about stress tests, it's a whole other conversation. It's a test that you take. It doesn't mean you have to take a 5% interest rate, but it is trying to slow down buyers from getting in over. And the other thing that's a component that is going to be interesting, there's a couple of things that were coming. We were anticipating more foreign investment. So that could, money coming out of the Asian markets, if it eases up with COVID, with the rules that are in place, that's one thing. But the counterbalance to that now is, and again, you mentioned we're in an election month or whatever it is. The Liberal government is proposing that they actually have more penalties and more restrictions on investment for non-residential, primary residential. So what is that going to do? The key theory is to make housing affordable for people who are actual residents. So if the Liberal government gets in, we have that to consider. That's going to shift the market a little bit. You're going to take a buyer out of the market that would have been there. So, there's a number of variables. What's the fourth wave going to do? That's a challenge to know. I think the fourth wave, it's going to be less of a challenge than the first three. My hope is that. I think we've gone a long way to getting protected from that. So that's the hope. I would suggest that the other thing that comes in, which is always part of this, is supply. So when we see some of these other things happening, the government protection, the interest rates, will we see enough supply to satisfy the demand? Right now, it's a pretty balanced market. You're almost 50-50 on listings to sales. Again, pretty healthy. Are people waiting for the fall market to put their property on? That'll be the next question. And whether or not we're going to see that much pent-up demand for buying is the other thing. So we've got, again, are we going to see listings? If we don't see a lot of listings, it naturally will drive the market to being hot because there's going to be enough buyers. But if we see enough listings, I think you may see the buyers soften. And the 2023 analysis or the anticipated market is for it to soften. So I think fall could be pretty brisk. I think going into the spring market, we may see it still somewhat active, good market. I think we get to this time next year or the summertime next year, you're probably going to see it soften again. And we may not see a strong market in the fall based on what the interest rates are doing. So I don't see any major falls. Real estate is always a great investment. And in today's day and age, we've seen that, people have this vision that real estate isn't going to continue to go up. I think that it's proven itself through some tough times. Real estate's a great investment for people. And I think it'll continue to rise. I think people are shifting their mindset to lifestyle a little bit more. So they're going to spend the money on a monthly basis. They want to be in the lifestyle that they want. So I think that's where the market will continue to drive it. And we work really hard to pay our bills. So why not live where we want to live? And I think that's what's happened. And we'll continue.
Good to know. Well, Mike, how do people get in touch with you these days? And we'll put notes in our show notes and links and all that sort of stuff. But what's the best way to reach you?
Well, we've got a fantastic website at fraservalleylifestyle.com. And we would love to hear from you through there. We have some various links, what's happening in our community. It's a big part of what we're trying to promote is our community and businesses. You can reach me directly at 604-889-7653. And that can be done by text, or you can give me a call. Sometimes I have to return the call. So texting sometimes is best. My office at Royal LePage, I have a number, 604-538-2125. We've almost stepped away from the office calls. We've almost gone to direct calls. Yeah. And so, it's interesting that number is still out there, but it's rare that I get a call. And then the last would be my direct email, which is mike@flifestyle.com. So if you have questions, you can always send them my way. Website's a great forum for us because it obviously allows you to ask some questions and get some information for yourself rather than feeling like you're being chased by a real estate agent right away. So feel free to drop into our website and check out what we're doing. And obviously, Rod, you're integral to that, working with that. So, and then I just welcome any calls and questions. Obviously, lots of questions coming up for everybody at this time of the market. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah. So just in case people miss that, it's Mike at FV as in Victor
Yes.
lifestyle.com. I had someone confused about that the other day, thinking
Yeah,
V's
the
V's
FB.
can sound like B's,
Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks, Mike.
Hey, Rod, thanks very much. Nice chatting with you. And I wish everybody luck out there in the fall market. It'll be exciting times ahead.